An ex-Navy man who had to give up his pets sobbed when he realized this. Dogs are liked by everybody, so why shouldn't they be? They are the most amazing and happy animals on the earth. All they want of us in return for their unconditional love is a little love. If you own a dog or know someone who does, you may be familiar with this adorable little animal who sprints for you as soon as you enter the home. While they do have a special affection for their owner, they are also able to show some love to their owner's pals. Dogs are able to detect emotions as well, and when they do, they will gently crawl to you on all fours, place their head in your lap, and inquire, "Are you okay, human?" They can make you feel better with just a little caressing, and once they've made their owner happy, you'll see them racing about the home. You are a good dog. This man treated his dogs like members of his family. So when a shocking, life-altering circumstance presented itself, he had to choose between two terrible options. He could not take the prospect of losing these two, but then an incredible event occurred that altered their lives irrevocably. James Pack cherished his two dogs, Bailey and Blaze, above anything else. His world fell apart after having a heart attack. He understood that it would be extremely tough for him to care for his pets because of his health problems. It wasn't enough, even with his family's support, and he was regrettably had to place them for adoption. He contacted the First State Animal Center and the SPCA, but Pack's thoughts continued to revolve on what would happen to Blaze and Bailey. Life gave him a second chance just when he thought there was no hope left. Following his heart attack diagnosis, Pack realized his life would never be the same and that he would eventually lose all he held dear. James Pack is a very brave man, as far as we know, but his mounting medical problems were causing him to lose faith. Day by day, the light in front of his eyes got progressively dimmer. He begged for a miracle to take this curse off of him, and he had no idea that someone was paying careful attention to what he was saying. James Pack was in the Navy, and he came home to fulfill his ambition of becoming a pilot after serving in Vietnam. After deciding to major in construction management, Pack was prepared to enter the construction industry and pursue his ideal position. Despite being aware of his cardiac condition, he wanted to carry on working. He quit working as a construction worker and started driving as his health deteriorated. Even though Pack had never considered owning a pet, seeing Blaze altered his perspective. The Labrador Pitbull hybrid has only been around for 8 weeks. Blaze was unlike other dogs, even to Pack when he handled him for the first time. Glancing into Blaze's little eyes, he understood how much they both depended on one another. They remained together from the beginning. Pack found that Blaze was the ideal addition to their family. The adoption facility where Pack had initially adopted Blaze called him a year later. If Pack was prepared for another adoption, a woman from the adoption center wanted to know. Even though he wasn't first sold on the concept, he went to the center. He turned in time to see an adorable little dog struggling to emerge from a little kennel. Pack reconsidered and chose to provide Blaze a companion. "Bailey, please meet." Years later, who would have imagined that this nice and content family would be destroyed? When Pack opened his eyes, a hospital room was where he was. After being comatose for many days due to a heart attack, he was taken to that location. "Where are the dogs?" was his first question. Every morning when he got up, he looked forward to seeing Blaze and Bailey, but they weren't there today. It was bad for him that his heart was beating so quickly. He then learned that his dogs would be rescued by a nearby animal charity while he healed, according to an arrangement made by the SPCA. Even though he was glad to hear this, Pack continued to worry for them. Though life had other ideas, he was confident he would be all right in a few days. Pack's condition didn't get better even after 5 days, so he was unable to pick up Bailey and Blaze. 3 weeks later, when the dog care facility where Blaze and Bailey were being kept phoned the veterinarians to check on Pack's condition, they discovered that he had an infection and that it didn't appear to be getting better. All that was present was ambiguity. Pack's persistent questions regarding Blaze and Bailey worried the physicians. The physicians were unable to deliver the bad news to Pack because it would have put too much strain on his heart. But it was nonetheless disappointing. First State Animal Center and the SPCA were in a difficult situation. They couldn't hang on to Blaze and Bailey for much longer. It had been weeks since their arrival. They knew what was going on with Pack, but they could do nothing. When they determined that Blaze and Bailey needed a new home, you could see their predicament. Losing a pet or having a heart attack are both extremely painful experiences. We're not sure which is worse. As if being apart wasn't enough, worse news arrived. Pack noticed one morning that he was momentarily immobilized on the left side of his body. He'd felt a bit better the previous evening and had asked the doctor if they could make plans to phone the SPCA first thing the following morning since he missed his pets. But suddenly his left side was momentarily immobilized as he lay in his hospital bed. Although Pack was aware that the talk would be challenging, he was not going to pass up the chance. The SPCA workers could hardly hear Pack's broken English, but they understood he was inquiring about Blaze and Bailey. They assured Pack that the dogs remained with them and were receiving wonderful care. Relieved, Pack promised to return shortly to retrieve his dogs. Pack was growing restless with the delay as the SPCA attempted to hold on to Bailey and Blaze while he healed. Thought his pets were secure, which made him pleased. But were they? An employee of the SPCA named Lindsay Carithers was concerned about Pack's circumstances. In an interview with the Delaware State News, she stated he had to surrender his 2 dogs because he didn't have anybody to care for them. Pack recovered better after learning about Blaze and Bailey. Carithers was complimentary about the dogs as well. They are quite cute. He has them perfectly trained. Pack is a decent person. Pack was excited to finally meet his dogs after a lengthy wait, but he wasn't prepared for what transpired next. It was a very long period for Pack to be apart from his pets while he was in the hospital, more than 3 months. He couldn't help but fear that Blaze and Bailey could have forgotten about him or wouldn't recognize him as he prepared to see them again. It was difficult to determine who missed the dogs or Pack more. He wasn't even certain if they had been adopted somewhere else or were still at the shelter. When Pack got at the shelter, his heart raced to see that his dogs had vanished. He waited for word from the shelter workers where his pets were while in a panic. As it turned out, Bailey and Blaze had been moved to PetSmart, where their chances of finding a home were higher. Pack was unsure, though, if they were still there or had found new homes already. The dogs' exceptional training skills astounded the PetSmart personnel, who thought it odd that they hadn't found homes yet. Pack only wanted to cradle Blaze and Bailey in his arms once again, and he had no knowledge about this. Will he have the opportunity? Pack went to PetSmart full of optimism, hoping to get his pets back. He gave the staff an update on his condition and the story of how Blaze and Bailey came to be with them. His tale touched the crew so much that they offered to assist Pack in getting back to his dogs. The reunion was poignant. It was really heartwarming. He was emotional and the dogs were happy to see him. Everyone started crying, stated Carithers. Pack discovered he didn't have a house as he was about to take Blaze and Bailey home. But because of his diligence, he had been able to find a location where he could keep his dogs. He was thrilled to have his dogs and a house to live in today, even though at first he had intended to live with them in his car since it would have been simpler. Unfortunately, the joy was short-lived. It was awful that he still had to pay for his own pets. Dog adoptions are handled by PetSmart, and Blaze and Bailey's adoption cost was $201, which was a significant amount for Pack, who had spent 3 months in the hospital. Due to his illness, he was unable to work and had spent all of his funds on medical fees. Despite his best efforts, he was unable to come up with the $210 that was required. He requested that PetSmart accept all of the money he had on hand, promising to pay the balance as soon as he was able to secure employment. However, his request was denied. Although it's difficult to accept, Pack's narrative made the world's insensitivity abundantly evident. The pet's true owner was unable to keep them. With tears in his eyes, Pack walked out of the store, determined to find a way to bring Bailey and Blaze back. The idea of losing them again was too much for him to handle. His mind was still reeling from their reunion, and he could not stop seeing Blaze and Bailey's faces. He had the thought to sell the vehicle when he was seated in his automobile. Pack was going to sell his automobile to a junkyard when an amazing opportunity presented itself. Melissa Eagle, an employee of the SPCA, called him. She was inspired to assist Pack escape his terrible circumstances after seeing his tearful reunion with his pets. Her only desire was to assist him in achieving the ideal happy ending for which he had been yearning for the last 3 months. With no end in sight to the problem, Pack was growing impatient day by day. God appeared to feel his anguish as he visited the chapel and prayed for his pets to return. For Pack, things were about to become real. Peck returned to the institution and requested that his dogs be returned, since he felt he had enough money. However, they told him it wasn't enough and declined to accept the money. After this, Pack was absolutely worn out and gave up on life. He believed his time with it was finished. In front of the employees, he was sobbing and pleading, muttering incoherently, "Why is that? How come I can't have my dogs?" He was weeping so much that his voice was incomprehensible, and he was repeating, I can't have my dogs." Things were no longer making sense, even after experiencing such immense suffering. With his hands up in supplication and his eyes darting about for his dogs, he just stood in front of them thinking, this is it. Though there was another side to the tale, it appeared as though the staff members were cold-hearted. They understood the suffering Pack was going through and assured him that he would, in fact, receive his entire money back. "But why retain the money and not give me my pets back?" he said, shocked to hear this. Then they informed him of Melissa Eagle's willingness to assist him. The business reduced the fee after realizing the veteran would not be able to pay to have his pups back. All he could do was stand and wait, unable to believe what he was hearing. Melissa Eagle believed that she would find like-minded people who would assist Pack when she became engaged in the tale. And there she was, with Chris Malick, who covered everything in the end. Amazing, huh? But that's not all. People even went so far as to provide Pack the tools he required in order to advance in his life. While standing in front of the counter, Pack watched as Carruthers pulled a number of items, including toys, candies, gift cards, and food, out from behind it. All of this was accomplished by volunteers from different shelters. Pack's heart was beating again, and he was crying. It appeared as though Christmas and New Year's arrived simultaneously. As he was admiring the presents, he heard Bailey and Blaze barking and turned to see them sprinting in his direction. The moment overpowered everyone. He was knocked down and continued to be licked by Blaze and Bailey, who were ecstatic to see him. Everyone was shedding happy tears and laughing. Why wouldn't they? They had finally met their father, after all. They would all remember that moment for the rest of their lives. Still, Pack and his children were in for a lot of surprises. In 1953, the First State Animal Center and the SPCA were established with the intention of assisting both humans and animals. The group was given exclusive jurisdiction over animal management and control in Delaware in 2005. They made the decision to assist Pack after learning about his cardiac condition. Pack was able to get employment with the Delaware Commission for Veterans after learning about it. He got back on his feet and able to support his family thanks to the Delaware Commission for Veterans and Veteran Affairs. These groups are always delighted to help out, especially for a veteran like Pack. Another surprise stood in the way of his exit from the business. Pack was obviously taken aback by the change of events. He was able to forget all that had gone wrong in the previous 3 months with surprise after surprise. Pack was seen on video the instant he walked into the store. Everything was captured on tape. Pack became so overwhelmed about it all that he gave each and every individual present a hug. Imagine that moment for a second. After then, Melissa Eagle uploaded the film to the internet, where it was adored by all viewers. She came up with an additional plan to assist Pack even more. She made a GoFundMe website. They raised more than $7,000 for Pack and the dogs in only 2 days. Pack, Melissa, and the dogs were invited to Fox and Friends, where they shared their touching tale with the globe, following the story's widespread success on social media. There are many tales that demonstrate how indescribable the bond between people and dogs is. Millions of Americans had their hearts warmed by this photo when it first appeared on social media in August 2011. Upon seeing the devoted behavior of his dog, guests at the burial of Navy SEAL John Tumilson were rendered speechless. The dog remained there till the funeral was over. He is the one that misses Tumilson the most, for sure. You may be shocked to hear about a dog that, despite never having visited the cemetery, managed to locate his owner. Every day at 6 o'clock in the evening, the dog, Captain, paid his old master a visit. How was it accomplished by him? We don't know, but it's safe to say that Captain and his owner had a very special relationship. When they were in an accident, Teacup, his owner, and 2 other persons were in the car. Through the hole made by the collision, Teacup managed to exit the vehicle. He never left his master's side and accompanied his owner to the ER. During World War II, Bamse was a minesweeper from Norway. The crew revolted against the captain because they were so unhappy that he was about to leave with Bamse for another posting. Bamse and his owner were stationed in Dundee and Montrose, where he went on to become a legend. With a specially designed bus pass slung around his neck, he traveled alone on buses. Even when sailors were inebriated, he made sure they returned to their designated places. Nobody ever got why Bob was so obsessed with trains. He used to accompany railroad employees to work and remain with them till their shift was completed. Later on, he was taken in by a generous station guard who gave Bob permission to ride the train with him for free. That is fantastic. In 1695, St. Bernard's sole responsibility was to find lost pilgrims who had become buried in the snow. The dogs had separate tasks for each other, and they all traveled in pairs. One dog carried the victim out of the snow and sat on them to keep them warm, while the other went back to the monastery to report the discovery to the person in charge. Among them, Barry saved the lives of almost 40 individuals. Like Bob, the train-obsessed railway dog, Oni was enamored with the smell and feel of the mail. I began trailing the mail bags on mail trains and postal vehicles. He has got to be the only dog in the whole country who has done it.